Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's just jump right in today because we're going on a truly bizarre journey. We are going to connect the dots between the absolute driest, most bureaucratic modern paperwork you can possibly imagine and a bloody, lawless medieval execution. It's a story about how the dark shadow of 14th century treason eventually gave birth to an institution that today literally regulates the safety of gardening tools.
I want you to start by picturing Pembroke College in Cambridge today. Just imagine it. The perfectly manicured lawns, the historic brickwork, those tranquil, quiet courtyards where the biggest disruption you're going to hear is a bicycle bell. Now, ask yourself, what are the absolute biggest risks to human life on a modern, serene university campus like this? What is actually keeping the administrators up at night?
Well, we don't actually have to guess. We have the official June 2021 Pembroke College Health and Safety Policy and Procedures Manual. And what's really wild here is the sheer physical weight of this document. I mean, it is 80 pages long. It's this meticulously detailed, hyper-vigilant rulebook designed to regulate basically every conceivable physical action a student, a fellow, or a staff member might take on those peaceful grounds. Let's talk about what actually fills up those 80 pages. The college actively regulates an exhausting list of modern hazards to make sure absolutely everyone is totally safe. They've got strict protocols for display screen equipment, making sure your computer monitor doesn't strain your neck. They have entire policies on slips, trips, and falls. They even use a highly specific hand-arm vibration screening questionnaire for groundskeepers who are using machinery. And if you ever need to review security footage, yep, there's a dedicated CCTV request form for that too. It is a world of absolute predictable control. And all of this builds into a very rigid step-by-step procedure. Let's say you so much as trip on a cobblestone in Ivy Court. Instantly, a bureaucratic process kicks in. First, you have to call a first aider from a designated list. That first aider attends to you and logs the incident in the official HSE accident book. Then, Human Resources steps in to notify the enforcing authority under RIDOR regulations. The takeaway here is that nothing, absolutely nothing, is left to chance. Every tiny drop of blood, every mildly sprained ankle, is recorded, analyzed, and managed by professionals. But here is where our story takes a massive pivot. It really begs the question, what kind of world birthed this safe haven? How did a college that is so utterly obsessed with display screen equipment safety actually get its start? Where does the foundation of this ultimate safe space actually lie? To figure that out, we have to look at the founding of Pembroke College. It was established in 1347 by a woman named Marie de St. Paul. But Marie wasn't just your average noblewoman. She was French nobility, and more importantly for our story today, she was the wealthy widow of Aymer de Valence, the Earl of Pembroke. And if we really want to understand the Earl of Pembroke, we have to leave 2021 completely in the rearview mirror. We are transporting ourselves back to 1312 England. Our second source for this explainer is the Vita Edwardi Secundi. It's a contemporary 14th century account, and it gives us this incredibly intimate, gripping look at a deeply violent and lawless political landscape. In 1312, there were no HR departments, there were no health and safety committees. There was only raw power, the sword, and who had the king's favor. And sitting right at the center of all this chaos was a man named Piers Gaveston. Gaveston was the lover and the absolute closest confidant of King Edward II. Because he had this immense, unchecked influence over the king, the English nobility absolutely despised him. To the barons, Gaveston was public enemy number one. Eventually, after a standoff at Scarborough, Gaveston surrendered. And here is the vital connection for us. He surrendered into the specific protection of Aymer de Valence, the Earl of Pembroke. Aymer literally pledged his own lands and tenements to the king to guarantee Gaveston's physical safety. Okay, so we've got the Earl of Pembroke personally guaranteeing Gaveston's health and safety. Let's see how well that actually held up. On June 9th, 1312, Aymer de Valence makes a catastrophic mistake. He leaves Gaveston under guard at a village in Deddington so he can go off and attend to certain business. The very next morning, June 10th, the Earl of Warwick, who is a sworn bitter enemy of Gaveston, ambushes the village and captures him. By June 19th, Gaveston is dead. Pembroke's ironclad pledge of safety completely collapsed in a matter of just 10 days. The text brilliantly captures the sheer terror of that ambush. Our source describes the Earl of Warwick, who by the way was terrifyingly known by his enemies as the Black Dog of Arden, arriving at this village incredibly early on a Saturday morning. He surrounds the chamber where Gaveston is sleeping and just roars out, "Arise, traitor, thou art taken!" Can you even imagine waking up to that? And the craziest part? Gaveston's guards put up absolutely zero resistance. the safety system failed utterly.
In an instant, Gaveston's world is totally shattered. The source specifically notes he was led forth not as an earl, but as a thief. They physically stripped him of his belt of knighthood. This was a man who used to ride right beside the king on a fancy horse, and now he's forced to march on foot to Warwick Castle, completely surrounded by blaring trumpets and the, quote, horrid cry of the populace. It is just a total, humiliating loss of status and security.
While he's locked up in Warwick Castle, Gaveston finally realizes that the Earl of Pembroke either cannot or will not save him, and he utters this incredibly heartbreaking lament. He says, "Oh, where are the presents that bought me so many friends, and with which I had thought to have sufficient power?" It's the moment he realizes that in a lawless world, royal favor and endless wealth are completely useless illusions of safety once a group of heavily armed barons decides they want you dead. Which brings us to the grim climax on June 19, 1312. Gaveston is handed over to yet another furious baron, the Earl of Lancaster. They take him to a place called Blacklow Hill, and Gaveston literally throws himself on the ground, begging Lancaster for mercy. But there's no mercy to be found. Lancaster just coldly commands his men to lift Gaveston up and take him away to his doom.
What happens next is, well, you could probably call it the ultimate health and safety violation. According to the 14th century account, Gaveston was handed over to two executioners. One ran him completely through the body with a sword, and the second one severed his head. His remains were hastily gathered up by Dominican friars who literally had to sew his head back onto his body. And as a final brutal indignity, because he had been excommunicated, they denied him a proper church burial.
The author of the Vita Edwardi Secundi leaves us with this really chilling reflection. Such Peter's end, who, climbing too high, crashed into nothingness from whence he came. It was a brutal, incredibly public warning to any English courtier who thought they could just rely purely on the king's favor, while completely ignoring the raw, violent power of the barons. In 1312, there were no risk assessments. If you upset the wrong people, your life was forfeit. Period. Now, let's bring these two vastly different sources crashing back together. On one side, we have the reality of the Earl of Pembroke's world in 1312. Kidnappings, high treason, swords through the chest, and excommunication. And on the flip side, we have the reality of the college founded in his name today, regulating exactly how you sit at your computer desk, filling out triplicate forms for slipping on the grass, and submitting requests for CCTV footage. The leap from utter bloody medieval chaos to this obsessive, bureaucratic compliance is honestly staggering.
And that is the incredible irony of Aymer de Valence's legacy. His absolute disaster of a failure to protect Piers Gaveston stained his reputation forever and perfectly highlighted the brutal insecurity of his era. And yet, it was his wealth, which he left to his widow Marie de St. Pol, that created the lands and the legacy that birthed Pembroke College. The wealth of a man who couldn't stop an earl from being dragged out of bed and beheaded eventually funded an institution that now meticulously audits the safety risks of its own gardening tools.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating final thought to wrap up this explainer. When you know its roots, would a college born from the ashes of medieval treason, broken pledges, and a horrific murder ever truly feel safe without an 80-page safety manual? Maybe, just maybe, all our modern, exhausting bureaucracy is just our way of keeping the black dogs of Arden firmly outside the college gates. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey today, and honestly, I hope this changes how you look at your next health and safety briefing.